You are listening to the Maple Footy Podcast, the unofficial football podcast of the North. I'm your host, Sam Little. Find me on socials at SamLittle44 and the podcast at Maple Footy Pod. And now there's nothing left to say except for sit back, enjoy, and welcome to the show.
Hello, yes, and welcome back to the Maple Footy Podcast. You already know what we are. We're the unofficial football podcast of the North. And today it is something a little bit different because it is the World Cup. I myself have World Cup fever. And while I usually exclusively talk about Canadian football, Canadian soccer, all that fun stuff, today I thought it would be fun to kind of do a little recap of the World Cup so far and do what I like to call one thing we've learned about each team that has played. So for this, I'll be covering every game from South Africa versus Mexico all up until Sweden and Tunisia. We will cover each team and kind of just say one thing we've kind of learned about them so far in this tournament. I will put in little opinionated things and some statistical things and whatnot. But yeah, these will be one thing that we have learned. So why not start with the first match, Mexico against South Africa? So it was 2-0 for Mexico in this one as they opened up their home World Cup against South Africa here at the Azteca. And yes, to beat the dead horse, the final should be held at the Azteca. Obviously, they're not going to change that, obviously. But the fact that it's not is absolutely baffling. So let's start with the losing side on the day, South Africa. One thing that we learned about them is they got to get their discipline in check. Two guys sent off in this one for some pretty, I don't want to say reckless, but I guess reckless challenges that ended up costing them on the day and could cost them going forward in the tournament. As now both these guys will miss out on the next game. And do they have the players to step in? Time will tell on that one. But yeah, discipline needs to get in check for South Africa as they look to now salvage their World Cup. And that is what's interesting about a 40-18 World Cup is it does feel like after one game you could be qualified for the knockout stages or pretty close to qualified. And if you kind of lose your first game, I mean, I guess this was always the case with all World Cups, but if you lose that first game, you could be done, and now every single game, your remaining two are do or die here. So now let's look at the winners here, Mexico. I think what we learned here was experience. Experience paid them in full on this day, as Raul Jimenez, I thought, was a shining star for them on this day. What a journey he's had to this World Cup, of course, nearly having to retire. Sadly, just lost his dad earlier this year. So for him to be out there on the biggest stage, scoring, I'm going to say one of the biggest, if not the biggest goals of his career, was absolutely beautiful to see. So for Mexico, I think that they are always a tough team to break down, a tough team to beat. Trust me, I'm Canadian. I know that they're a very hard team to beat. We now will be looking to their experienced players like Raul Jimenez. And I think with this 2-0 win, have put themselves in a pole position to get through to the round of 32. So that will be very interesting for Mexico. And, you know, you always want to see the host nation do pretty well. So obviously I want Canada to do really well. But looking at our co-host counterpart, I'd be okay to see Mexico make a little bit of a run, so long as, you know, they don't run into Canada along the way. But let's move into the next match here. So the next one was Czechia against Korea Republic, where Czechia fell 2-1 after going up 1-0. And for Czechia, I think what we learned in this one was their attack needs to sort it out in a sense. Of course, Patrick Schick is a very good striker. Averages nearly about a goal every other game for Bayer Leverkusen at club level. We have seen Patrick Schick also step up for Czechia in Euros past. So we need a guy like Patrick Schick and their other attackers to really step it up here going into their next couple of games, because once again, they lost this first game. Feels like now their next two games are do or die. So you're going to need your attacking talent to step up. On Korea's side, though, this was I thought, a very impressive performance, and I want to highlight someone specifically, En Blom. of Korea, formerly of the Vancouver Whitecaps as well. So we will make Canadian connections along the way, even if we aren't talking about some Canadian teams. But Mbwam, give him the keys. What a performance it was. A classy finish for the first goal, and then a beautiful goal, a beautiful play, which he had his fingerprints all over for that second goal, the winning goal for Korea Republic. Give him the keys. Let's let this guy cook. Outside of that, though, Korea, I do think, will need to take advantage of some of their chances, especially an experienced guy like Son, who probably had, 4 or 5 chances on the night and never hit the back of the net. So you need your experienced guys then to not be wasteful in front of the net. I will keep this one very, very short because it was Canada and Bosnia, and I already did a half-hour long in-depth breakdown of this game. So go check that one out if you want my in-depth thoughts. But to keep it simple here, what we learned about Bosnia is they are going to play like Arsenal, and I mean that in a derogatory sense, not in a complimentary sense. They will park the bus, sit back, and then try to catch you with a set piece. That's exactly what Bosnia are going to try to do this tournament. For Canada, what we learned, chances, convert them. One of my main concerns with Canada in the build-up to the World Cup was their lack of conversion on golden opportunities. We had 2 golden opportunities on the day, and neither one was converted. It took a moment of magic to bail us out, so we will need to adjust that, in my opinion. States against Paraguay. What we learned for Paraguay is this is going to be, I think, a very difficult run out for them. They lose 4-1 to the States here, and the States, and I'm not saying this because I'm Canadian, but the States haven't really looked good in the build-up to this World Cup. You would have thought they were prime Brazil playing against this Paraguay side. What I think was most disappointing was some of Paraguay's bigger, more well-established players like Miguel Almiron and Ciso really struggled to get into this game and do the things that they like to do, of course. So you're really going to want those players to get involved a lot more. In a World Cup, you need your big and best players to get involved, step up, step in, and that's what you're going to need from Paraguay. If you're Paraguay, you're going to really need to see that over the next 2 games, because right now their back is really up against the wall, not just with the loss, but now with the goal difference as well. For the States, I don't know what Balogun and Pulisic were doing, but do that again if you're the States. Let Balogun and Pulisic cook. We have seen Balogun and Pulisic step up for the States in the past, so to see them on the biggest stage play as well as they did, and Pulisic only played the first half, which I think is concerning for the States, because when Pulisic came out, I think they really lacked a threat without Pulisic. With Pulisic, they looked a totally different team, and maybe that just was them managing the game. They're already up 3-0 at halftime when Pulisic came off, so maybe they just thought, it's done and dusted kind of thing. But I will say, though, if Balogun and Pulisic and other attackers and players like Reyna can replicate what they did on this day, then the States could be a little bit of an exciting team to watch going forward. But that is what we learned about the States here in this one. Switzerland and Qatar drew themselves 1-1, and if you're Canadian, which I would assume you most likely are if you're watching this podcast, this is one to take note of, because they drew 1-1, we drew 1-1 with Bosnia. It means that this group is wide open, and it is going to be a nervy 2-ish weeks in this group stage for us Canadians and for every team in this tournament. But what we learned about Switzerland is they might not be the same without certain guys like a Xherdan Shaqiri. Xherdan Shaqiri has always stepped up for Switzerland and was always an attacking presence. What I thought Switzerland really lacked on the day was that attacking presence, and they just didn't have a guy that looked like he could change the game like a Shaqiri has in the past. But just overall, I just thought Switzerland lacked that grit, that bite, especially when your captain is Granit Xhaka, of all people, someone who's known for that grit, bite, tenacity. They really lacked it on the day, and I actually thought Qatar are a little bit unlucky here to have not pipped a win in this one. But with that being said, with Qatar, I think what we learned, they're not just here to make up the numbers. I know a lot of people were kind of looking at Qatar in this group of, they're going to be lucky to get a goal, But that was not the case here. Qatar looked very good, and in my opinion, we're the better team on the day compared to Switzerland. So for Switzerland, I would say find that grit, find that tenacity. As a Canadian, don't find that grit. Don't find that tenacity, please. But if you are Swiss, of course, I think that they need to find that oomph to their game. Then I think that we all know that they do have. Switzerland are known to get out the groups in the World Cup. But with Qatar, though, they're just not here to make up the numbers. And I think that's what we learned. They're not going to be an easy team to play. They weren't an easy team to play for Switzerland, as they found out. Qatar, like I said, unlucky not to win this one, I think. So that is what makes this group, I think, going to be very, very interesting going forward. Brazil won, Morocco 1 was the next game. And we'll start with Brazil here, because I think if you've followed Brazil over the last couple of years, you would have already known this. But of course, if you only watched the World Cup, you probably wouldn't have known this. This Brazil team is not the Brazil team that you're used to. They lack that attacking flair, and that is what we learned for them. Outside of that beautiful goal from Vinicius Jr., I think their attack looked bleak on the day. They look uninspired as well. Igor Thiago does not look like a striker fit to lead the line for Brazil. Vinicius Jr., take out that goal. I found him very lackluster on the day. Rafinha felt very much not like the Rafinha that we have watched at Barcelona. Then you even look at their subs that they could potentially bring in as attackers. You got Martinelli from Arsenal, who's coming off of a not great personal season for the club. So with Brazil, I think what you either already knew or you have come to now know, this ain't the Brazil that you grew up watching. It's just not. And I think that for a lot of people, this could be an awakening in what Brazil has been recently. And that has been just not the best anymore. Morocco, though, what we learned is they still got that 2022 juju, baby. They look really, really good. Outside of a couple of very nice saves from Alisson, this could have been a big win for Morocco. I'm thinking back to like that Alisson double save that he made late on in the game. Morocco, unlucky, I think, not to win this one. It does come through the heroics of Alisson. But with that being said, for Morocco, they just look a solid team. So what we've learned is they haven't moved past that 2022. They have built on that momentum, and they look really, really good and could be a team to watch. And maybe we could see them making another run to a semifinal, quarterfinal, a final, who knows, But Morocco looks very, very good. Haiti fell 1-0 to Scotland in this one. And what we learned about Haiti here is kind of like what I said about Qatar. I don't think they're just here to make up the numbers. And this isn't me saying that Haiti is going to go to the final. But I also don't think that they're going to be an easy game. I think that they set up really well in this one. And honestly, in my opinion, we're the better team on the day compared to Scotland, in my humble opinion. Just Haiti could not finish. I thought guys like Experience, Bellegarde, Delcroix, and Dedson were all really, really good for Haiti and really took me by surprise and really impressed me too. So for Haiti, once again, not that I think they're going to go to the final, but I do think that they could cause problems in this group and not just be an easy team that you're going to go in and go, okay, here you go. Here's 3 points. I think they're going to make it very challenging. For Scotland, I was actually quite disappointed in this performance. What we did learn about Scotland, though, is they do have some of the best fans in world football. I've loved seeing the Scots abroad, traveling the States and just having the best time. It's been great. But team-wise, I honestly thought they were quite disappointing to watch. And some of their big players, like I thought Scott McTominay didn't have his best game. John McGinn, while he does get the goal, I don't think he really stepped up and showed the John McGinn that we know. Che Adams and Shanklin felt very isolated and not involved. So for Scotland, I think, against especially Brazil and Morocco, they're going to need those big players to come up with some big moments like your Scott McTominays. John McGinn did come up with a big moment to his credit, but we're going to need to see John McGinn over the full 90 really assert himself into these types of matches. Vancouver have entered the chat as they hosted their first game, which was Turkiye and Australia, which saw Australia win 2-0. So what we learned about Turkiye in this one was their star players really, really got to step it up. I'm thinking of Arda Güler. Of course, Yildiz was a non-factor on the day, but if he can go for this tournament, you're going to need Yildiz to step up and step in. Hakan Çalhanoğlu is going to need to step up as well, because Turkey, I just thought they looked on the ropes for most of this game. They didn't have answers for that Australian low block and quick counter attacks. They had zero answer for it, and I think for Turkey that is quite disappointing, especially with some of the attacking talent that they do have, of course, like your Arda Gülers. For Australia, kind of what I just said, their counterattacks are deadly. That first goal they scored was an absolute beauty off the counterattack. So for Australia, we've learned they're going to be a tough team to break down with the low block that they play and how good they line up defensively. And then also, they are absolutely rapid on the counterattack. So if you're playing Australia, get ready to run and get ready to try to break down that low block, because I was very impressed by this Australian side. Germany 7, Curacao 1, or as Wayne Gretzky likes to call them, Curacao 1. But yeah, in this one, what we learned about Germany is, they don't care about your feel-good World Cup story. They'll be ruthless. They're going to score their goals. They don't care if you want that feel-good moment or not. And Germany, for me, was a big pick, I think, to win this whole tournament. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but I just think from front to back to front, and then the head coach, they're all very, very good for the most part. So I think for Germany, they are still a team to watch. I'll be interested to see them come up against a more well-drilled opposition per se, a more experienced opposition. But with Curacao, this was moment of the tournament outside of the Kyle Larin goal for me, and that's biasly the Kyle Larin goal, because watching a country make their World Cup debut against the 4-time champs, one of the tournament favorites, to go and grab a goal at 1-0 down, to make this interesting, to make it 1-1, to let the country celebrate such a historic moment. It's the type of thing that the World Cup brings you. You get chills, So what we learned here, though, is that Curacao, while they did lose 7-1, is if you do switch off, kind of like Germany did, they were taking Curacao a little bit lightly for that first about 21 minutes until Curacao scored. They can make you pay. They can grab a goal. And this isn't me saying that Curacao is going to go on and win the whole thing, but if you do switch off, there is still room to be punished against Curacao. So while, yes, the game ends 7-1, they gave us, one, an absolute all-timer World Cup moment, and two, they can still make you pay. For Netherlands and Japan, it was 2-2. What we learned about the Netherlands in this one was, once again, they were one of my picks to be a dark horse in this tournament. I think a lot of people have written the Netherlands off, but I actually do think that they could go on to do some good things in this tournament. But if they're going to do that, something we learned is their attacking talent is going to need to step it up. Outside of Somerville, they looked uninspired in the attack. I thought their midfield looked good. Thought their defense looked really good. Their attack, though, outside Somerville, I thought really let them down on the day. Gakpo and Malin, they didn't really do a whole ton, and both of those players are very talented. So you need them to be able to step up going into the next couple of games. For Japan, though, we saw that they have the depth. They're missing guys like Matoma, Endo, and Minamino in this tournament. They looked like a really well-drilled team. And if you followed Japan and kind of know about Japan, they're not just a team that's a pushover or anything. They are a very well-drilled, well-oiled machine as a team. They move as one. They score as one. They defend as one. They do everything as just a proper team. They are such an interesting team to watch, I think, because they truly are a team in this tournament. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Japan can do going forward. So what we learned about them is, even missing some of their star players, they have a lot of guys here that can step up in big moments in the clutch. And that's exactly what happened on this day. Côte d'Ivoire 1, Ecuador 0 in the next one. And as a Moises Caicedo fan, this absolutely killed me to see my beautiful boy on the losing end of this one. But for Ecuador, I think what we learned is their attack needs to not play the crossbar challenge because they had some glorious opportunities, hit the bar. Those are unlucky, of course. But on a serious note, their defense is so good. But their attack really, once again, just needs to find that gear and grab those goals. They had their opportunities and just could not convert. And then, of course, they end up conceding a goal. No matter how good your defense is, which I thought their defense was very good on the day, at some point, someone will break through and will score against you. And now Ecuador's backs are going to be against the wall going forward. It's going to be very interesting to see what Ecuador can do in the next couple of matches. And for Côte d'Ivoire, I think what we learned is they are another team to watch on the counterattack. They are a very, very quick team. Diomande, Diallo, all very quick boys. Even Nicolas Pepe, that's a shout out. The 100 million pound man, formerly of Arsenal Football Club. But their counterattacks looked deadly at times. And once again, if they could have found some finishes, this game honestly looked like it should have been like a 3-3 thriller if you were actually watching it. But it ends 1-0 in favor of Ivory Coast, Côte d'Ivoire. So for them, I think it's when you're getting those counters, once again, just got to capitalize on those chances. Final match here was Sweden 5, Tunisia 1. What we learned about Tunisia is I feel like they were their own worst enemy on the night and have now, the rumors are circulating that Tunisia have parted ways with their head coach already after this loss. So I'm waiting for any official confirmation as of recording this video. But for Tunisia, they were their own worst enemies. I think you could chalk up 3 of Sweden's goals up to Tunisia just falling asleep and just letting Sweden through, So for Tunisia going forward is you got to stay locked in. You got to stay dialed. You will be punished if you're not. For Sweden, I think what we learned here is they will punish you if you are falling asleep. And their attackers here have not carried over their club form into this World Cup because Gyökeres and Isak both looked like the Gyökeres and Isak that Liverpool and Arsenal respectively were signing but didn't get. They looked very, very good, as did most of Sweden on the day. But yeah, what we learned here is Sweden will punish you if you give them the opportunity to. But that does bring to an end this episode of the Maple Footy Podcast. That was every game that has been played so far and what we've learned about each team. As I'm recording this, Spain are about to kick off in a little over an hour. So we will still have games to kind of talk about throughout and whatnot. But that is exactly where we're at as of recording this episode. So I do hope that you've enjoyed. Keep an eye out on Wednesday. We will be dropping a very exciting interview, and then Friday we will be dropping our game recap for Canada and Qatar, hopefully with Canada getting their first ever win at the World Cup, but time will tell on that one. Outside of that, follow us everywhere, on socials at Maple Footy Pod. Subscribe and follow the podcast wherever you watch/listen from. And outside of that, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, cheers everyone.
And that was your Maple Footy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Check my socials for any and all future updates. Remember to support Canadian football, be kind, and until next time, live, laugh, little.